Round 1, I've decided to go with Wesley So versus Magnus Carlsen. e4, c5, knight f3, d6, bishop b5 check. So we have the Sicilian. Carlsen blocks with bishops, they come off. Another way to play is to block with the knight. Knight to c6 or knight to d7. I prefer one of these options because you just keep more pieces on the board. And with the black pieces, I like to play the Sicilian and I like to go for winning chances. Bishop d7, a pair of bishops come off. It kind of reduces your winning chances. Take, c4, knight c3, and g6 was played. I like this move e5 because it stops white freeing his position with d4. With g6, Wesley So goes for this freeing move. d4, take, bishop out, f3, pieces out, bishop e3, rook c8, and b3. Why is more space? This is called a Maroczy bind. You have your pawns lined up in this way. It's a good strategy for white to put his pawns on light squares because he doesn't have his light squared bishop anymore. Knight c6 castle, queen retreating to d8, and then the queen comes out to a5. So a really cool way to retreat because the queen was doing nothing on d7. Queen out to a5, rook d1, knight back to e2, and a4. So notice Wesley's putting almost every single pawn on a light square. The point of a4 is to stop black from playing b5. e6, cool move because you can't take because bishop is attacking the knight. So rook b1, bishop to g5, rook e8, bishop f4. Is this a weakness or a strength? Knight e5, h3, getting the king to safety, queen b4. So this is one disadvantage from Wesley's setup. You give Magnus the chance to put the queen on this square. You can't attack this queen with another pawn. So bishop to g5 and now f6, a huge decision. One option was to play rook d7, but Magnus decides to kick the bishop away, bishop back, knight f7. So these pawns, they look pretty cool, controlling every central square. f4, but the problem is Wesley has more space. f5, pawn break, a huge decision. It frees the bishop, but there is this weakness on e6. Take d5. So take, bishop back to g1. Wesley gets out of the way of any rook takes e3 idea. So bishop g1, knight d6, because now the knight protects f5. Queen d3. Wesley now has 2 on it. Knight in, and an amazing move, but very, very important. You don't want to take the knight, or else you give black this move. Now knight, bishop, queen, rook, they all attack the knight on the d-file, so you don't want to trade. Knight e2 played, knights come off, and bishops come off. This only reinforces the fact that Carlsen's got serious weaknesses now around his king. This is a weakness from the knight. Maybe the queen can come over to the king side soon. King in the corner, rook c1, grabbing an open file. Queen d6, queen slides over. Knight g5, queen f2. Now the queen is really facing the king. Carlsen is in trouble. Rook f8, rook, queen slides over. Now the rook comes in. Rook g8, putting pressure here. Rook g1, very important move to defend against mate. This square is covered by white's queen. Rook c8, offering a trade, but no. Carlsen grabs the pawn on b7, but it does allow the rook in. Knight e6, controlling squares around the king. But the point of knight e6 is now to come back to g5. This is a really good move because the knight, queen, and rook all attack the pawn on h7. Rook g7 played by Carlsen. You can't take and take because mate on h7. And if you can't take back, then queen d4 is just so powerful, eyeing the king. So knight g5, rook g7. Wesley plays a check first, then he trades, forcing a capture with the king, and then knights come off, and this is probably the best move of the game because Wesley wants g4 to work, but at the moment it doesn't work. It's illegal, so he just gets the king out the way with this brilliant move, king h1. g4, and now it is white, the one who is going to open the king side in his favor. King g7, g4, king f7, take, rook g5. Brilliant move here, attacking the queen, and there's no good way to defend the h7 pawn. Carlsen throws in a few checks, but it doesn't do anything, and here he resigned. If the queen moves, then you just take on h7 check. King f8, just to stop mate. If you go here, then that will be mate. So king f8, but then you play check, and then you can just win the queen. This is how Wesley So beat Magnus Carlsen in round 1.